All right, Mike, are you ready?
Alrighty.
All right. Welcome back to the Wednesday Word Wad. I'm here with Mike, and today we are going to do something a little bit different. 2 videos ago, we did more like a fitness and nutrition myth. And then last week we did more just one topic. We did 2 things, fasted cardio and cold plunge. And then this week we're going to go back to one of those more fun topics. Mike does not know what we're doing.
No idea.
So we're going to do, this is inspired by Dr. Nathan Jenkins' Instagram stories yesterday and today. We're going to do a little combo. It's going to be overrated or underrated, but you have to give your explanation. So there is some science and evidence to back up your claims. And then there's going to be some this or that. So you'll have to choose, and then the same thing. You'll have to explain why.
Perfect.
All right. We'll start off.
Are you giving your answer too?
Yes, I'll give my answer too.
Good.
Overrated or underrated muscle soreness? You can take this any way you want.
So I think it used to be overrated.
Okay.
Muscle soreness, as we know, is not a causatory variable for any type of strength or muscular hypertrophy adaptation. With that being said, I think everyone knows that, so now it's underrated. The reason why I think it's underrated is it's a decent proxy to kind of showcase whether maybe you provide enough stimulus to the target area. If I'm constantly going into upcoming sessions, training the same muscle groups, maybe 3 days later as I did 3 days prior, and I have no soreness like 24 hours after, that means I probably can do a little bit more training volume. If I'm still kind of sore and I notice that I'm limited going into the next session, it usually means I'll decrease the volume a little bit. So it's a proxy for auto-regulation of increasing volume and intensity. Again, it's not a causatory variable for anything, but that's why I'd say now it's underrated because it's a tool that you can kind of use for data.
I would say underrated as well. I think in simpler terms, if you're always in the gym and if you're going to the gym and you're always sore, there's not a single session where you're not sore. You're probably doing it a little bit too much, and that's easy. That's an easy indicator of like where to kind of adjust your programming. Also, it's a balancing act because some exercises and muscles, body parts tend to get a little bit personally more sore with more volume or a specific technique or whatever. So, for example, like the cambered bar bench press or like something simple as calf raises, my calves get so sore, and that probably means that they're undertrained, and that makes sense because I don't really train them very often, and when I do, it's not an extended period of time. I don't give them enough time. But large ranges of motion tend to create a lot of soreness. So on the other side, if you're going into the gym and you never experience soreness, you're probably not doing enough.
Yeah, especially if you're not increasing reps or weight that you're lifting.
Yeah, cool. Overrated, underrated. Pumps are important for muscle building. So if you're working, because there's a difference. There's some people that go in, they'll just rep. Like you go in, you'll grab the 20s and you just bust out 100 reps of curls. Like, yeah, you're going to get a pump, but is that worth your time? Is it worth the fatigue that's built up? Overrated, underrated, like kind of chasing the pump.
Yeah, it kind of depends. If you go into LA Fitness or an export, I'd say it's overrated. So we know that increasing mechanical tension over time is going to be the primary driver of muscular hypertrophy. Metabolite accumulation, the data is kind of mixed, really, on whether that's a causatory variable of hypertrophy. Okay. You have some individuals that'll look at the data and they'll argue yes. You'll have some individuals that'll say no. So it's hard for me to take a large stance on that. I think, from my understanding, is if you get a sick pump, that usually means that that muscle probably has a lot of type 2 fibers, which typically lend itself to a greater pump. And if you have a lot of type 2 fibers within a certain muscle system or muscle in general, that usually means that that muscle can grow really well.
Okay.
So it may not be the pump that's growing you. It's just that you are genetically, you have a disposition towards that muscle where that muscle can grow. And if you get a huge pump, maybe you work the type 2 fibers of that muscle well, and that's what caused the growth, but it may not actually be the pump itself. So
yeah, I would say I think they are underrated because usually for me, if I get a good pump from a exercise, that usually means that I have a good quote unquote mind muscle connection, and it suits my biomechanics, my levers and body parts in a certain way that I could perform that exercise in a progressively overload it and I guess grow within that exercise, whether it be load, reps, or both over a period of time, and I could kind of continually add to that and adapt.
yeah, and to kind of add on this one, even if the pump doesn't grow you, the pump definitely keeps you consistent.
Yeah, that's like the cherry on top.
The cherry on top, like I'm not gonna lie, I love the pump. It feels amazing. It gives me almost a high, and I don't want to say I chase it, but it allows me to train with consistency and adherence because it's one of the variables within training itself that I just frankly enjoy.
Yeah. Cool. This kind of leads to the next one, overrated, underrated, mind-muscle connection. You want to explain what that is first?
Yeah, so in simple terms, mind-muscle connection is the idea that you really want to think about the muscle that you're working so you can perceive the tension, you can perceive the burn, you can feel it working.
Yeah.
I think for some muscle groups, it's helpful. In some movements, I should say it's helpful. Maybe others, it's not. So, for example, if you're doing a barbell squat, you're doing it for hypertrophy, training it in a 6 to 10 rep range, you're not thinking about the mind-muscle connection with your quads.
No.
That makes zero sense. You're thinking about your mechanics and executing well so that the target muscle, the quads, are hopefully getting the most stimulus if your goal is quad growth. For some muscle groups, I find it kind of helps me tap in and not use other muscles while I'm doing the movement, generating fatigue there and keeping the stimulus where I want it. So I like focusing on the mind-muscle connection, oftentimes on isolation movements, accessory base, just so that I know that I'm keeping the stimulus where I want it and I'm not using other supporting casts to create the movement and maybe generating unnecessary fatigue that takes away from total stimulus I can get.
Yeah. I want to add on to the isolation movement. For me, and more anecdotal, it's like the isolation exercises. So like whether like barbell RDLs, if I'm doing GHD sit-ups, but more so for hypertrophy and not like in like a workout for time or whatever, a CrossFit workout where it's more so speed and the amount of reps. But if I'm, or the various cable exercises where it's kind of, mind muscle connection to me is just intense focus on the task at hand. And for me, like if I have 315 pounds on my back, for me that's relatively heavy. I'm not worrying about how my quads feel. I'm worrying about this like not falling on me, but I'm doing it in a matter of the quality still, but I guess more like a GHD sit up. I could really kind of focus on the eccentric portion, going down to is larger range of motion with comfort, obviously, and no actual physical pain, but you feel the muscular burn and the stretch of the abdomen, and then I could focus on it and actually like there's no like actual I'm going to touch the muscle and have a better connection, but like feeling the contraction and having intense focus on the muscle and the task at hand, I think is like how I would explain my muscle connection.
I like that explanation. So essentially you're saying it increases consistency of technique.
Yes.
Which is what you want. It holds you accountable, which is important for specificity and progressive overload, the two most important principles for creating any type of adaptation for that matter.
Yeah, because it's like you're going to, what if you're doing like the workout Grace, it's 135 clean and jerks for time, 30 for time. It's like you're not thinking about hamstrings with the pull, and then you're thinking about traps with the shrug, and
Yeah.
then you're thinking about shoulders with the push jerk overhead. Like you're not thinking about all that at once. You're just thinking about getting this done.
100%. Cool.
Overrated, underrated, zone 2 cardio.
I think cardio is rated.
Okay.
So I'm not going to say this one's overrated or underrated. We know cardio is great for overall cardiovascular fitness, heart health.
Yeah.
The type of cardio modality that you do, I don't think matters a whole lot.
Okay.
I think if you're using it for a tool for fat loss, I prefer doing a cardio modality that generates the least amount of fatigue to the most amount of calorie output for the time of which I'm putting into it, because I'm looking for efficiency.
Yes.
I think a lot of this is going to come down to the type of adaptations you've already made within the modality you're focusing on and what you prefer.
I 100% agree.